Hello, this is Maddie with Maddie Does Life. This is my fourth episode, I believe. I have this project I've been working on, and I've mentioned it before. And today I'm going to get into the nitty gritty, how I kind of think about things, kind of the business side of it, kind of business structure and all. Because what I have currently is I have two companies. One is a single member disregarded entity, and it's an LLC, and this is in Missouri. And I also have another one in Wyoming that is also a single member LLC that is not a disregarded entity. Now, what that means when I say disregarded entity is that the is that for tax purposes it doesn't exist. Like, I would file my taxes for the company as part of my own personal taxes under my Social Security number instead of my EIN. And the thing is once that's great. My first company, the disregarded entity, was all it was selling some stuff that had been crafted at a local uh, craft fair. That's all it was. Just maybe $400 or $500 in revenue or something like that. It was nothing. There was no real liability attached to it. There's no nothing. I just needed an EIN basically for banking purposes, and and to get into the craft fairs, and that was pretty much it. But now I'm doing something much bigger, and that means I need a different kind of business structure. And I sit across the table from people on a weekly basis who really, they have this business they set up and they don't know what the options mean that they've selected. So I have to go through it with them as to how their stuff is set up, so that things can be properly reported. And um, that's just something that a lot of people struggle with, especially starting out. One of the issue that I'm having right now, the issue that I specifically had, was that I need to get my disregarded entity out from where I am and have it go to the other company, because I still want that name, right? I still want to use that name. I still want to. It has. I'm attached to that name, right? It's got a cool logo that we did ourselves, and it is really snazzy, and we just want to keep that IP. And it also has some assets underneath it that currently are considered my assets. But here's the thing: is I can sell that to the other company. When that happens, there's a whole list of things that have to be done. I have to tell the Secretary of State in each state what I'm doing. There's going to be forms that have to be filed with both of them. I have to go down to the bank and change the account ownership, or the company. There has to be some change that happens there to tell everybody that, hey, this company is no longer my personal responsibility, and let's have some separation, please. Now, one of the benefits of having it as a disregarded entity is, with the bank that I bank at, I could see my business and personal accounts on the same login on the app, because for financial purposes we were the same. Once I start filing taxes as under the EIN, that gets split up, and so I'll have to have two logins for the same app or for the same bank website, which no big that's kind of no big deal, but it still is, because it means that I can no longer transfer funds from one account to another, from my personal to my business, over the app. I'll have to go in and do that in person, or at an ATM that where you touch the screen and somebody comes. A lot of banks have that these days. It has to be something teller assisted or something like that. Maybe just write a check, um, one way or the other. But in other words, there's extra steps involved when you have that separation. So it can be beneficial to not have that separation if you don't need it. It's still an LLC, so you're still separated as far as liability is concerned, generally speaking. Although I am not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant. This is not professional advice in any of this stuff. This is just me and what I've read on the internet. When I say read on the internet, I mean hitting Secretary of State's websites. I mean going to the IRS website, going to websites of people who know what the heck they're talking about and do this stuff for a living. And I've had to put in my information on several websites to give me access to semi-paywalled articles detailing exactly how to do things or what steps to do or whatever. And that's so this has been a learning experience for me. For example, I learned that I don't want to just do it. I just don't. I need another step in there. First thing I need to do is I need to take that disregarded entity and convert it over to a C corporation. And the reason is because when my holding company buys the company that I'm trying to put under the holding company, it needs to the assets that it has that it's going to take with it, which are my assets right now. It has to buy it from. It has to buy these assets from me. That's my understanding. And if it's not a C corporation in terms of taxation, then it has to then it becomes an entirely taxable event for me. In other words, if the company has like $4,000 worth of assets under it, which it probably does if you total everything up. I mean, it's got some really nice equipment there, and some supplies, and all sorts of tools and stuff. And if we include all that, which we should, then according to what I'm seeing, that's $4,000 worth of income that I have to report personally, because I just sold that to the company, to the holding company, regardless of whether the holding company actually pays me or not. However, if I convert it over to a C corporation, I can have it done on an installment plan, and I don't have to give it 100% ownership. I can give it like part ownership. I can keep 50%, and the holding company gets 50%, and that's separation there. And I may go that route instead of putting the whole thing under the holding company. But on the other hand, I think I want to just put it all under the holding company. I haven't decided on that yet. There are other things that I'm going back and forth on. I mean, at the end of the day, what this is about is getting this brand under the holding company. That's the important thing. And to do it with incurring as few fees and tax obligations as possible for me personally. And maybe that means that it takes a year for it to buy everything from me, or whatever. That's I just have to look at the timetable on it and stuff. That's there's a lot of like little nitty gritty things that you don't really realize when you set up a company for the first time. You go, oh well, this is great for now. This is exactly what I need. But then over time, you have to, if your company grows, if your plans grow, if the scope of what you're trying to do changes, then you gotta kind of break out of your comfort zone. You gotta say, okay, we need we need to adapt, we need to do something else, because what we're doing with Unicorn Promise, what we're doing with this company is is feeding into our holding company money wise, so that so that that's a stream of revenue. Basically, the retail side I want to put under that, and the media and the things like this podcast. Okay, if this actually starts giving me money, and Patreon starts I start getting revenue from Patreon from this, then then that money uh, goes through a separate kind of reporting thing, because the liability for stuff online, for me talking online, the liability is different than it is for selling physical items. And that's the important thing. That's what I'm trying to do, is divide up the liability so that if something goes wrong on one side, it doesn't sink everything else. Because to me, it's not about really the money that I make from this, because the money that I make from this is going to my project, right? It's going to fund affordable housing. That's the goal. Honestly, I would never set up anything nearly this complex if it was just for me. You know, if this was just for me, just for my living, I would keep it as simple as possible. But when you're trying to do something bigger, when you're trying to, I guess when you really have motivation, that's really what it comes down to. When you have motivation, you're willing to go beyond, you're willing to learn new things, you're willing to say, okay, give me the checklist. Oh my God, there's 36 items on this checklist. Why am I doing this again? And then you think about it and go, because this is the goal, this is the vision, this is what I'm trying to work towards. And the people who succeed are going to be the people who are able to look at that checklist, get overwhelmed by it, and then set aside that feeling of being overwhelmed and say, you know what? It's worth it. This is what I need to do. This is what I want to do. This is what I feel called to do. And we all have our own motivations. We all have our own, what it is that we really want to do. For a lot of people, it's just, I just want to get by. I just want to, I don't know, maybe just supplement what I make in my 9 to 5. Maybe it's I want to transition from my 9 to 5 to something else full time, something that I want to do that where I'm in. Maybe it's because I want to be in charge. Maybe it's because you want to be in charge. Maybe it's because I don't know. Maybe it's for retirement, because you know that you're not getting retirement from what you're doing now. So maybe it's you look at it and you go, okay, if I do this, I can help people doing this thing, or help people doing that thing, or just be like the random money fairy for the people sitting on the side of the road. I don't judge people for what they want to do with their money. But what I am interested in is helping people figure out how to get from point A to point B. And that's really the point of this whole podcast, is not just this episode, but the podcast in general, is that there are so many different approaches, so many different things. We all take our own path, our own journey. We all have our own motivations. We all have our own approach to things. We have to live under, we live under the same framework of rules, the same regulations, at least on a federal level, with what the IRS requires. And of course, states can have different flavors of things, like, some states have closely held corporations, others don't. And so some have a kind of hybrid nonprofit thing called I think they usually call it a socially responsible corporation or something like that, where it's not a nonprofit, it's not recognized as a nonprofit by the IRS, but it still has It still gives you some state benefits. Maybe a social benefit company. I forget what they call it. I think different states call it different things. Um, and this is why it's so. This is one of the things that makes this so interesting to me is when you cross state borders. And I've had small businesses in 3 different states, and they all play by slightly different rules. They all have, they all have some of the same business structures, but each one of them also allows you to do other things. Each state also does business differently. Is there a one-stop shop where, you just sign up here and all your taxes do are through this place, or do you have five different entities that you have to deal with separately on the state level? And those are the kinds of details that you have to know when you get set up, when you get started. And it's not something where the answer for one person can be different from the answer for somebody else if they're not in the same field in the same state. Because some of the stuff that I'm doing, I wouldn't be able to get away with if I was in a different industry, you know. And eventually, I may have to change how I do things as things grow. But one of the benefits to having different entities for different lines of work is that, for example, for my online stuff, for my media stuff, that is taxed differently than for my retail sales. So the retail sales all go through one, the media stuff all goes through the other, including things like if I pick up sponsorships or something like that. That's all considered a different type of taxation by the jurisdictions that I am in. And so it is better to have different entities, I think. I mean, it costs what, $75 or $100 to file. So if you're going to be so I guess I just look at it as, it's 10 minutes of my time online, and 75, $125, whatever, to get it set up with the state. And to me, that's not a big deal. I mean, the money side of it starting out can be a big deal, but as far as process is concerned, I'm an old school tabletop gamer. I'm used to like looking at all sorts of charts and tables, and figuring out how to min max characters and all that using like books. And all this stuff to me is just an extension of that. It's just, you got to find your class and build your character up from there, and that's basically what I'm doing. I have multiple characters I'm putting together. Each of them is in a different class, doing different things. Eventually, I'm gonna have an investment arm, that to handle investments. That's gonna be set. That's probably gonna be a hedge fund, and it'll be set up quite differently than the entities I currently have. And there will be another one for real estate, and that's going to be a that's going to have its own set of regulations and stuff, and that's going to have to be separate so that it can be tracked properly. In fact, I'm told by some people that they have separate entities for each property that they own, and so that can get rather complex. It all has to do with how you structure it to kind of isolate yourself for liability from one thing to the other to make sure that a problem in one doesn't wipe out everything else. And right now I'm a one-man show, right? I'm a one-man show doing all this stuff, and I look at what is required to do the kind of thing that I'm trying to do, and it's a bit overwhelming if you look at it in totality. But if you break it down step by step, one thing at a time, and you kind of lay out a chart of how you want it to go together, and what has to reinforce what, and how you can move money between different entities, different units. It's all um, it's complicated. There's no doubt about it. You have to have a certain kind of mind to really work with that, I think. I happen to have a mind that is horrible at doing some things, but seems to latch on to this as something that, hey, I can do this, you know, because it fits in with just how I think about systems and how things flow. And so I'm trying to leverage that with whatever opportunities I can in order to build something that I want to do, which is the Affordable Housing Initiative. And with that, that's all I have for you today. I'm going to shut this down. I'm just going to say, if you want to support the work that I do, if you want to help with the Affordable Housing Initiative, you go to my Patreon. This is actually under the name Casey Mo Reacts on patreon.com. Link is down below. For $3 a month, you get a handful of perks, and that money goes to our Affordable Housing Initiative. And you have a wonderful day, and continue being awesome, and I look forward to talking with you next time.